business channel, and considering we're sitting here in BSc, I'm hoping some of you who have actually caught it and got some tips while watching the channel as well and invested in the stock market. I host and produce a show called Avaz Entrepreneur, where we primarily map and try and identify and celebrate the wonderful work all the women and men sitting around here are doing. And it's an honor. Thank you, Ajay, for having me here and doing this. I'd like to begin this conversation. Of course, it's a great moment where we're starting and where we're going to be talking about a program which is going to help in women further their business and scale their businesses. But to get an environment, to get a status check and see how things are really in the framework, in the ecosystem that you're all a part of, and I'd like to be a part of someday as well, other than just reporting for it. Mr. Wolfgang, I'd like to start with you. As an outsider, when you look at the whole entrepreneurial ecosystem, and we've been very active in the last few years, but the last 2 years is where the limelight has actually been shining in India. What is your perspective? How is this framework, and how much are we looking at scaling the way this community is growing in India?
Well, thank you very much. Looking, I'm German for those who do not know me, and I'm working for the German Corporation, International Corporation here in India. So we are looking at innovation and technology, and especially at financing. And I think one of the main issues indeed is the issue of financing startups and also having available financial means for growing into larger business. That is one part. The other, of course, is having the right networks, for example. Like you have one here, which is very important, having the incubators, but I think it has to go beyond that. So you have to create a framework for growing startup business.
In fact, we've been lucky considering early this year the government has launched the startup policy, but you'd be surprised to know that the Department of Science and Technology has been working on this. They've worked very closely with a lot of media ventures supporting entrepreneurship. And Dr. Gupta, I'd like to get a perspective from you. Of course, there is a limelight now because the government is formulating policies. People are very excited about it. But the Department of Science and Technology in the last few years has backed a lot of women entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs in general, what other things is the government working on to perhaps further this cause?
See, Department of Science and Technology has been working in this space for last 30 years. And we had a very tough time in first 15 years or so because our target group where we actually focused on was academic institutes, and entrepreneurship and academics do not gel because they used to be alien, like in academics. And in last 10 years, we have seen a lot of activities. Even institutes are also very willing to align their curriculum towards entrepreneurship, tech startups. Since 1990s, when ICT was in boom, internet also came into play. There we have seen sudden shift, and now we have new role models in startups. We have IT, and IT has been in the forefront. I am Ahmedabad has been in the forefront. Now we have a network. When we started in early 2000 with the incubator network, we will be touching 100 very soon. So we have seen the journey, but the concept of incubators have actually seen its own evolution. Like it was purely, you can say, hardware driven, where we used to provide only centralized workshop facilities, to now the co-working space, which we are seeing aided by a good mentoring, networking, and funding support. So these components have actually gradually put in place over the years. Now with a new Philip hype and buzz about the Startup India Action Plan, everything is slowly falling in place. Now we have a startup portal. Any startup, we have a definition of startup.
Right.
See, earlier we were struggling. How do we define a startup? So we have a definition in place, a portal in place, and a startup and go can have the notification circulars, can register themselves, and then actually if you have gone through carefully what the action plan talks about, there are about 19 such measures which are actually bound to make our innovation and startup ecosystem much more conducive and enabling for startups to succeed in the marketplace. And Department of Science and Technology is working very closely with the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, which is the nodal department to drive the most of our activities now will be strengthened and scaled up and will be largely centered around the incubation centers. We are announcing a national program which is known as NIDHI. NIDHI stands for National Initiative for Developing and Harnessing Innovations. There will be series of 9 to 10 different programs which will address various links of innovation to market value chain, which is usually a missing piece in Indian ecosystem. So we see a lot of action in next few months by rolling out our NIDHI program initiatives.
So I get the sense that the government is going to be playing a far bigger role than it has in the last few years. But I'd like to get an entrepreneur's perspective on this. Naiyya, when you set up your business, of course, you were a little lucky because you heard about zone startups and you came here and they've helped you grow. It's not really easy being a woman entrepreneur, is it?
So I'll just take the mic. So I run a company called BabyChakra, which, as some of you might already know, is the largest platform for young mothers to connect with each other and socially discover care services, maternity and early child care services. So I had a peculiar problem. Honestly, Harshita, when I started out, I consider myself one of the privileged few, right? I did my MBA from a very prestigious business school. I have a consulting background. I have all the advantages going for me. I think the being an entrepreneur, however, however much of a level playing field it might be, as a woman entrepreneur, when you go out in the market, you're always in board meetings with venture funds who are 99% male, right? So two things happen. Number one, you're a different voice, which is an advantage, but you're a different voice nonetheless. Making a pitch. And the second thing that happens is when you're working in a segment that's specifically for young mothers, young women, a lot of the men in the venture funds don't really get it. They don't really understand the need. So, I mean, of course, now they get it. Now we are funded well, but it's an initial barrier, if you will, that you have to overtake to evangelize them. So I wouldn't say I went through a struggle at all, relative to what I could have gone through, but I can understand for a lot of women entrepreneurs, it would be a real struggle. And of course, then if you break down the entrepreneurship pyramid as well, there are women entrepreneurs, 30% actually, 30% of BabyChakra's entrepreneurs services on BabyChakra BabyChakra are by mom entrepreneurs, right? Who are starting off businesses as a second innings from home. And I can talk more about that and the struggles they face. But I think a lot of them are linked to financing, as was pointed by Wolfgang earlier.
So I'd like to uh, get the audience involved as well. How many of you have actually gone out, tried to raise funds from angel investors, VCs, if some of you have scaled up to that level and have got a door in your face? Two people. Others haven't tried. So how are you funding your businesses? Are you raising money yourselves? Are your savings going into your business? Okay. So what? So it's a cycle. It's a virtuous cycle. Luckily for you. Uh, but Ajay, in this kind of an environment, of course, you work with a lot of entrepreneurs. Funding is the biggest problem. I mean, you might start up, you might face a couple of challenges. Perhaps your in-laws, your parents would say, क्या कर रहे हो, घर बैठो, या फिर काम में लगे हुए हो, stable रहो. But beyond that, and actually scaling your business, how important are platforms like Zone Startups and empoWer going to be actually helping these women out there?
Sure. So just before we got into the program, I was having a chat with Dr. Anita. I mean, their organization supports a lot of incubators, accelerators, so they would see a lot of startups. Now, we ourselves also meet with a lot of entrepreneurs, and beyond just funding itself, I mean, the fundability itself also is a big question. I mean, for anyone, whether it's an angel investor, whether it's a seed fund, whether it's a venture capital fund, when they are investing money in the company, they are not investing based on emotion, whether it's a male, female, blah blah, whatever. But is the business something which is going to be a success? Now, for the business itself to be successful, there are a lot of anchor elements which are needed for making the business itself fundable. Now, the reason why you don't hear or see a lot of startups co-founded by women entrepreneurs is that there isn't a very strong pipeline or funnel of startups which are out there, which can be evaluated, and some of them will get funded out of it. Now, for having this very strong funnel or pipeline of startups itself, it is necessary to have programs which are not a half-day event, one-day event, or a workshop, but sustained over a period of time, where you're actually hand-holding startups not only through the basics, which might probably be around, whether it is raising a round of funding, whether it is technology whether it is UI, UX, whatever. Because a lot of them, when they would have got into the whole piece of building a business, they would have the building blocks with them. But what is missing is the kind of network, because at the end of the day, uh, different kinds of network, whether it's a network of peer entrepreneurs, whether it's a network of potential partners, which could be large corporates, probably it could be a network of investors whom we are constantly meeting, going to different forums. But this will help you in getting a lot of feedback, which will help you in build a robust business, which eventually might be fundable. So the whole objective of creating this program in a structured kind of a way, where there are several modules, there are mentors, advisors, and a lot of events tied in, is to ensure that the 15 entrepreneurs who get selected, they would benefit, if not directly through financial resources, but in building this very strong network of people, which will eventually help these companies to become larger entities over a period of time, and we would handhold these entities over a period of say 1 year. So it is not just a project, but it is a program. And the difference between project can be just with one end goal, but in a program you are helping them sustain over a period of time, where you can actually have metrics to evaluate its success. Success can be in different terms. Success could be a team growing from 2 members to 20 members. Success could be 0 customers to 5 customers. So helping companies through these different kind of metrics is what this program will focus on.
I like what you said, that you're going to be hand holding them, and it's not going to be a weekly or perhaps a 6-weekly process. And once you're part of the community, it's a big family. Anuja, now I know for a fact that Google has been supporting entrepreneurs for a very long time. Do you people actually go out and differentiate whether it's a male or a female entrepreneur, or are companies like you consciously beginning to think that we must back more and more women entrepreneurs?
Okay, so I think the answer is that Google rewards innovation, period. So, whether it's women or men, it doesn't really matter. But what is really nice is that this innovation bit started really long time back with Google. So it's not like this phase of startups right now. So if you see the acquisitions that have been made by Google have been like startups, right? So YouTube was an acquisition made. Nest was an acquisition. So what when they realize that you have, especially in the Bay Area, where the genesis of the startup is, they realize that the startups need a lot of push. So what Google really did was they came up with the program called GFT, which is Google for Entrepreneurs, right? And this actually has different modules in it. So they start with something like grow your own skills, where there are a lot of YouTube videos which you can access and kind of get the skills required, or kind of awareness that what all needs to be done. There are a lot of tools available. There's something called as a GBG, which is the Google Business Group, right? And like Ajay mentioned, the key to everything is about networking to understand the pulse of what's happening in the market. So I think the GBG is a great way to, kind of meet up with folks, like-minded folks, and understand, where you could steer your startup to. The other thing is also with respect to tools that you want, right? So for example, you're going to build this product, right? The MVP. So there are a lot of tools out there. Obviously, Google being a technology company, we provide you with a lot of tools and analytics to understand everything to do with data. The other bucket is about reaching out to customers, right? So you've got your analytics to figure out, what kind of customers are coming to your site, that kind of stuff, trends, Google Forms, Google, different questionnaires that are there. And the last bucket that is there for startups is that how do you reach out to the customers, right? How do you, through AdWords, and how do you make it relevant? How do you make your product relevant? So I think from that perspective, right, all of this comes under the GFP umbrella, and it's really out there for you to, go help yourself access this information and reach out to mentors.
I remember visiting Google last year, and I specifically asked them how many women are employed here, and they said surprisingly we've never counted. There's not really been a ratio, but when you go out and support all these entrepreneurs and the wonderful work in the startups that they've been forming and founding, is there a ratio as to how many women entrepreneurs have perhaps made use of the Google Cloud platform?
So, if I can just talk the India data, and I think the pool is very small. Unfortunately, Naiyya and I were discussing this. So we hope to programs like this give a boost, right? So it's a small pool right now. It's not many women out there. But whoever are there, you're going to hold on tight to them and ensure we take them to the entire side.
And I'm hoping that you get more and more women who are sitting out here. Sarin, I believe Vodafone is also going to be and is very excited about starting a new incubation platform for entrepreneurs, as well as a lab that you're going to be working on. So tell us a little about that, and how big a role is Vodafone going to play to actually help this revolution grow in India?
Sure. So first of all, my name is Sarin Thampy. I work as a vice president of Vodafone strategy, looking across the whole of Vodafone in India. I must say it's an absolute privilege to be over here by a single mom. I completely understand what it takes to raise two crooked boys, me and my brother. Uh, and I mean, I just met this wonderful woman, and she made some interesting point that women make makes great managers, and I couldn't agree more. Uh, I mean, and it's quite interesting, right? And when Ajay approached me, um, being 3 months in India, I just moved in from US, and he said that hey, we have got this great idea where we are trying to do something for the women, and it just came back to me, hey, my mom, the whole legacy, and I truly believe, if I have to pick between, not being biased or racial, but if I have to pick something between three three smartest women coming in with the craziest idea, and three men or whoever it is coming in, I'm somewhat biased against the woman, because I think they have a story. They fight against odd, uh, uh, they are brave enough, and some of the women, I mean, she's just, writing some notes, I guess. But she raising the money from her savings. It's unbelievable. I mean, who has the audacity to go into savings mode? And someone raised your hand. I mean, the, the charming lady out there, she went ahead and raised the money. So it's amazing, So I feel quite privileged and proud. And thanks for the opportunity. Now, as Vodafone, I'll keep it very short and direct. There are three things we are doing as Vodafone. So I got $1 million. Today's currency conversion rate 6.48 crores, to invest in a lab in Bangalore. Now, this is going to be a lab where we are going to bring a network, 3G, 4G, 2G. 2G is dead, 3G, 4G. And then we are going to bring our IT, IBMs, Wipros, TechMs, everyone will be coming in. And then we are going to bring in GE, Bosch, Energy. So we are trying to solve three problems. And obviously, we are going to bring Google, free cloud access, 100K. And then we are going to bring in Facebook. So we are going to bring Facebook with us. So the strategy, what we are trying to do is the lab is going to focus on 4 areas. One, network. Clearly, the customer demands are increasing. I just came in and I couldn't find a Vodafone 4G out here. So it's quite pathetic. I don't think so. I found Airtel. Let's see what Geo does. But my point is that network is important, IT is important, digital is important, and energy is important. So if any one of you over here and the busy guys out there who's not bothering to listen, if they have any crazy idea, bring it on to Vodafone. got a lab, play, come to a lab, play in the lab, and show it to us how relevant your solution is. Because one thing which I miss coming from US is whatever happens out there, or whatever happens in different parts of the world, when you come into a real environment, into the production environment, you get amazed because your solutions don't work, or you have a lot of issues coming up, you have a lot of scaling issues. We are the only company in India and only telco in India who is putting where our heart is by putting actual money into the lab. So that is one good news for each one of you, for all the women and for some men who are sitting behind. The second good news which I want to share is that we believe, I personally believe, the lab is one part of it. We are now going to begin an accelerator program, and Google is going to be a part of it. What we are going to do is, over a 6-week period, we are going to look and put some framework and structure, which is going to make your life easy when you approach us. And remember, when you approach Vodafone, it's a big organization, 40,000 crores. So we have to make it very simple for you. What are the legal templates we give you? What are the resources we give you? The way we engage with you. So we are working on a journey where we are going to put a framework of how we engage with you. So we make your life much more simpler. That's the second initiative which we are leading, called the Accelerator Program. We intend to call it Inception. If you have any crazy names, just email it to me. I think Inception is pretty cool. The third thing what we are going to do, and this is my last point, typically you have multiple options. You have VCs, and they'll gun after your blood, they'll take your equity and all those good stuff. But we as Vodafone, we believe that if we find your solution pretty interesting, can we bootstrap you? Bootstrapping is a way where you don't owe us anything. We do something believing that some output can come. So we can bootstrap you, and if your idea is really cool, really crazy, really disruptive, we think your ideas will fall in two buckets. First, your idea will help us cut cost. So you will come and say, hey, my startup solution can help Vodafone reduce 10%, 20%, or you will help us improve our NPS. That's your first segment of the idea. The second segment of the idea would be, you will come us and say, hey, we can help you grow your revenues. When Vodafone sells to Citibank, to Google, to Oracle, why don't you bundle my solution in it? Vodafone sells to Pfizer, Vodafone sells to Novartis. These are our enterprise customers. So bring your ideas and we can monetize it together. Uh, and that's how I think, as Vodafone, we intend to change.
Okay, that's good to hear. So the park's going to be a larger part of your life, I guess. But I want to come down to the main topic that we're discussing in accelerating women entrepreneurs. Naiyya, and I would pose this question to you. Do women entrepreneurs really need a separate ecosystem to support them? Is this current ecosystem not enough?
Um, so, okay, so just in full disclosure, as a woman entrepreneur, I've benefited from the zone, from Google Launchpad, and from the ABI, from the Anita Gupta Institute and the DST. So I've actually benefited tremendously from these networks, right? What did I find missing when I was starting out? So let me just sort of take a personal story. I moved back to India from Boston after being away for 3 years. I had no clue about what the venture ecosystem was all about, what the startup ecosystem was all about. Someone starting out from that fresh perspective, it's a valuable perspective to have, but you need to sort of understand who are the players there, what are the business models being tried out, what has worked, what has failed, what can work, and also how to build teams, right? And also how to build mentor relationships. I think for women, the first big barrier we face is a bit of an aspiration deficit. So when you start off, you question yourself multiple times, over and over again, whether I'm on the right track, whether I can even achieve what I set out to achieve. Having a, a special network, if you will, of mentors, of friends, and of trusted advisors certainly helps. When they tell you, yes, you can do it, and you know what, here are poster girls, if you will, or stories of other women entrepreneurs who've gone there, done that, and done more than you ever thought you would. So I think two things, right? Number one, having the ability to reach out to a large network who can share with you stories of women like you, women who've come from similar backgrounds, or women, who've gone through similar struggles but made it big. I think that is incredibly valuable. And that sort of helps you overcome the hurdle of the aspiration deficit, if you will. But secondly, also having access to the right people at the right time, I think is incredibly valuable and very, very underrated. And of course, I mean, overall, men have networks. There's no reason women shouldn't have their own as well.
Of course, we definitely need one, and we're a good, big gang of girls. But some, I wanted to ask you this. The fact that the Anita Borg Institute uh, is supporting women entrepreneurs, the DST has aligned with them. What are your learnings? How much have you seen these ladies actually grow when you take them for a week to Silicon Valley, bring them back? They've interacted with many more uh, technology players and necessarily not women, many more. It's a big playing field out there. Uh, what are your learnings from these?
See, we are still in the learning phase. So actually, it is the second in the series, which I'll be actually tomorrow. I'll be taking a set of about 6 new batch of women entrepreneurs identified through this Anita Borg Institute's competition, Women Entrepreneurship Quest. So we are yet to, but like Naiyya is our brand ambassador. We haven't gone through the first batch, and see, it's a very short module where you get exposed to some of the good practices which is happening in the Silicon Valley ecosystems. It does help, it actually enhances their confidence level, how to pitch before the investors. So in a way, like these do help, but like immediate quantification, how does it really, it will take some 2-3 years more time. And when you talked about like why there should there be a separate ecosystem for women, so there are many, so from the policy planning perspective, what Ajay has also talked about, there is no mapping done for the women, particularly in the tech startup space. We find their numbers in single digit, if you say. But how do we actually orient our qualified young women towards entrepreneurship? There has to be a separate forum, some special measures to orient them. How do we actually tap them at right place at right time? How do we equip them with the right set of knowledge, skills, and networks we need? How do we create new role models for inspiration? So what we think, what we are doing is not an expenditure but an investment. It's a drop in ocean, and we see that like this empoWer being the first accelerator of its kind will create a ripple effect in the country startup ecosystem, particularly for the women-led startups. So, and we need much more platforms to celebrate entrepreneurship led by women. So, unless we have a sizable number in place, then it will be, we ideally speaking, we don't need a separate ecosystem. We need a level playing field. We we do not need special measures, but it will take some time to reach to that level. Till that time, DST will continue to play a catalytic role and will provide all sort of encouragement, motivation to any of the such programs which enables, which inspires women entrepreneurs at large. And after 10 years, I think we'll be definitely having a unicorn from the women tech startups, and country will start celebrating, and then we will not need any special platforms. It will be all men and women together.
In fact, I'm glad you raised that point of the a woman unicorn. I was going to take that up with you, Ajay. Uh, it, uh, when we think of unicorns, of course, you've got your Snapdeals and the Flipkarts of the world, and even companies, big data companies, um, all over the place, and led by men. And if there is a woman out there, it's perhaps one of their family members, or luckily a spouse, or unluckily a spouse. Uh, how are you going to scale more and more women and empower them in a way that they would be competing with this male bastion of unicorns?
Sure. So again, I'll draw upon points what Dr. Anita made, what Naiyya made, and what I spoke in the beginning. I mean, what we are doing right now through a program like empoWer, I would say that it is perhaps a pilot. Maybe we might need to do 4 programs like this in a year, 6 like this in a year, because like what Dr. Anita mentioned, uh, okay, now you have venture capital fund Saha, which is very much focused on investing in women entrepreneurs. But unless and until they find a funnel or a pipeline of good startups to invest into, I'm sure that they wouldn't be making a lot of investments. So, cutting to that, the reason why we are doing this and we are going to sustain this over a longer period of time is to kind of, it's not just about hand-holding from a mentorship point of view, but enabling those connects which will probably help you get those early customers, first few customers, generate those revenues, probably get your first small round of investment, but then continuing supporting you even further along, because once it's just like getting onto a treadmill. I mean, once you start running and you increase the speed, there is no way that you can reduce the pace of the movement of your legs. I mean, you need to run faster. I mean, once someone receives a funding, even if it is like 30 lakhs or 50 lakhs of external funding, probably that's not going to make you the next big thing out there in the startup world. Probably you're going to need the next round of say 5 crores, maybe you need 50 crores. I mean, for getting into that race and continuing it for a longer period of time, you definitely need more of a sustained approach where there is someone who is probably an advisor, someone who is a mentor who is going to guide you to the right kind of connects. And probably when this happens, that is when you're going to have bigger companies. I mean, whether it is a woman entrepreneur or whether it is generally a startup, I mean, whoever is an entrepreneur will require that kind of an ecosystem, and that is what we are trying to do over here. Run this program, work with a set of women entrepreneurs for the first year, come up with a kind of a thesis or a report on what are the findings of this, because doing a one-day program or a one-week kind of a workshop, you can meet probably 100 people, you can collect a bunch of business cards, but you can definitely not measure any sort of impact. But over a period of 1 year, when you're working closely with a close group of entrepreneurs and there's a lot of developments happening, you can do some level of tangible measurements